Hello, everybody. Welcome to Vaishayas. This is Pranay, and we are going to continue the Tamil Nadu History Textbook Part 1 of Class 11th. So, we were discussing about the Vedic culture. So, we will be continuing the chapter number 2. This is the second part. Okay. So, please like this video, please subscribe to the channel, and please comment how you find this series, and let us know if there are any changes you want, or if there are any concerns you have. And please reach us on WhatsApp. The number has been provided on the first and last side. So please give some feedback, and reach us for any sort of courses or any sort of test series. So we shall start. So this is the second part of the chapter number 2, Early India, the Chalcolithic, Megalithic, Iron Age and Vedic culture. So we are going to cover the Aryans and the Rigvedic society. Okay. So the Aryan theory, basically Aryan theory, which we saw in the previous class, is pretty debatable. Okay, so a couple of people say they migrated from Central Asia, and a couple of people say they are actually the Harappan people. Got because of some sort of invasion or some sort of disaster. A lot of people died, and that next generation was Vedic people, and a lot of theories are there which we can just assume. So the European people specifically started calling the Aryan people as the white race people. So they tend this Aryan people as the race actually. But actually, in the later studies, we got to know that Aryan was not a race basically. It was actually the speakers of some sort of Indo-Aryan languages. Okay, so specific Aryan word has been used for the speakers of the Indo-Aryan languages. Okay, we shall see. The Aryan theory was linked to blue-eyed white race and its connection with the Europeans. Okay, Nazis used the Aryan concept for their political agenda. Okay, the recent studies have established that the word Aryan does not denote race. Okay, that's what we just discussed. Okay, but only refers to the original speakers of Indo-Aryan languages. Okay, though Rigveda is in Sanskrit, as we saw, about 300 words of Munda and Dravidian languages have been identified in it, suggesting cultural mix. Okay, so there is a mix of some 300 words from the Munda and Dravidian languages. Okay, from the Vedas, it is evident that Aryans used domesticated horses and chariots. The chariots had spoked wheels, and they used bows and arrows. See, there is a difference. The Harappan people did not know the horse. Okay, they did not know the horse, and also the wheels which Harappan people had a solid wheel. Okay, the Harappan people had a solid wheel, and horse they did not know. They used some sort of ox, bull kind of animals for their chariots basically. Okay, not exactly chariots, but they used cart kind of thing. Okay, they practiced agriculture and pastoralism. They buried and also cremated the dead. They buried and also cremated, both of the rites. Okay, the cult of fire and the use of soma drink was prevalent. Okay, the cult of fire and use of soma drink. What is soma drink? We will see in the upcoming slides. The home of Indo-Europeans and Indo-Aryans is still a matter of debate. That's what we said in the first slide. So a couple of people say they came from Central Asia. A couple of people say they were not exactly coming from there, but it was a kind of cultural extension being happening with the course of time basically. A lot of people slowly started migrating from there and slowly got mixed up with the people of the Indian subcontinent. Also, a lot of people say they invaded the Harappan people, and they replaced them basically. There are a lot of concepts, because since we can't go, and we just can assume. Okay, so Many scholars are of the view that Aryans came to India as migrants from Central Asia. Okay, it is also believed that several waves of Indo-Aryan migration might have happened. Okay, many times a lot of people came, and then after a time, again couple of people came. In that way, so it slowly got, transition kind of a phase was there, where a lot of people from the Central Asian countries might have arrived into India. Okay, there are several factors which support this hypothesis. Okay, the traits of the culture of Aryans cover Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Okay, which is geographically interlinked with India and West Asia and Europe. Okay, one of the accepted areas of Aryan home is Eastern Europe, Central Asia, north of the Black Sea. Okay, so Bactria margina archaeological complex is closely related to Aryan culture. Okay, you will see where it was exactly. Okay, dated to 1900 to 1500 BC. Ceramics of South Central Asian archaeology that resemble those found in the Swat Valley. The Swat Valley in the Pakistan, basically. Okay, so references to Indo-European languages are also found in inscription dated to 2200 BC, discovered in the modern Iraq. Okay, see a couple of Vedic gods around 1400 BC. Okay, around 1400 BC, couple of Vedic gods have been, discussed in couple of inscriptions, but such inscriptions were not found in India. Such inscriptions were not found in India, but they were found in different places. For example, Anatolian inscription around 1900 to 700 BC, 1700 BC, sorry, 1900 to 1700 BC. Anatolian is basically Turkey. Okay, it's in the Turkey. Next is Kassite inscriptions of 1600 BC, which is basically in Iraq. Babylon, it's nearby the Babylon. Okay, it's in Iraq. And next is Mitanni inscriptions of 1400 BC, Syria. Okay, and Bhogas Goi inscriptions, which is also in Turkey. Okay, so this kind of inscription, this is one of an example. This is I guess Bhogas Goi inscription. So in this inscription, a lot of Vedic gods, the Indra, the Agni, these kind of gods have been mentioned in these kind of inscriptions, but not in India, but rather in different places in the Central Asian countries. Okay, the term Aswa is basically what we call Ashwa now. Okay, so Ashwa is basically a horse. Okay, so and several other terms in Rigveda have common roots in various Indo-Aryan languages. In the Rigveda, term Ashwa, the horse, occurs around 215 times, and Vrishabha, bull, around 170 times. You can understand the importance of Ashwa and Vrishabha. Basically, it's the Ashwa has been occurred around 215 times, and Vrishabha around 170 times. So automatically it shows like the importance of the horse and the bull, basically. But tiger and rhinoceros, basically these animals were in Indian subcontinent, but which have not been discussed in Rigveda. Okay, tiger and rhinoceros, which are in India, which are in Indian subcontinent, are not mentioned in the Rigveda, which shows the absence of the Rigvedic people in India. Basically, it shows us like the Rigveda is related to the people who are not basically from India. Okay, there is no trace of the urban way of life in Rigveda. See, Harappan was very urban, right? It was peakly urban, but considering Rigveda, there is no sort of urbanization in Rigveda. Okay, so it is not correlated to Harappan culture. Okay, also in Harappan culture there was no mention of horse, like they as per the evidences, and as we have discussed, they did not know horse, but Rigvedic people were very fond of horse. Okay, so it shows the cultural gap, basically. Okay, also the DNA studies, okay, which we are doing now using M17, a genetic marker, is also saying they might be speakers of the Indo-European. Okay, Next, let us get into the Rigvedic culture. What exactly was Rigvedic culture? Okay. So Rigveda Samhita, Rigvedic Samhita. Samhita is basically, what is Samhita? The phrases, okay, the phrases in the book basically, okay. The Rigvedic Samhita is the earliest text, okay, which we have discussed. This is considered to be one of the earliest text basically, okay, relates to the early Vedic period. The early Vedic culture is placed between around 1500 BCE and 1000 BCE. Okay, the political, social, and economic aspects of life of this period are reflected in the Rigvedic hymns. Okay, so this is the geography. See, basically, they say, as per the evidences which we have got, the Indo-Aryans might have arrived in this way. Okay, this is Bactria marginia, and this was the major extent of the Aryan people. Okay, so mostly they covered the parts of Afghanistan, Pakistan, the major areas of Punjab, and some parts of even Uttar Pradesh also. Okay, so there comes a concept of Dasa and Dasyu. Like, they were called as Aryans, but couple of people were called as Dasas. Who were they basically? So the Rigveda speak about not only about the Aryans, who were the actual writers, or the people who started the Rigvedic culture basically, but also about the non-Aryan people. Couple of people who were there already in the Indian subcontinent. Okay, the Aryans came from the northwestern direction, but there were already there were people in the Indian subcontinent whom they were called as Dasas or the Dasyus. Okay, when the Rigvedic people moved into India, they came into conflict with the people whom they referred to as Dasyus or Dasas. Okay, evidently the Aryans differentiated themselves from the dark native people. So the Indians, who were the native subcontinent people, were basically the dark native people. Okay, but the Aryans were pretty fair people. So they started differentiating in that way, and the Dasas or the Dasyus, who are the native Indian people, were considered to be lower. Okay, even they used to have a lot of fights, and slowly the Dasyus became the slaves of the people. Okay, and native people who had different culture practices and sought to maintain their distinction. Okay, the Rigveda has references to several other groups. Simyu and Kikata are grouped with the Dasyus. Okay, Sambara, son of Kulitara, is mentioned as the chief with 90 forts or settlements. Varchin was another chief with many troops. The Rigveda mentions the defeat of a chief called Sambara by Divodasa of the Bharata clan. Okay, so what kind of polity they used to have, what kind of political hierarchy they used to maintain since till Harappan period, or what we call as since pre-Aryan period, we did not know what kind of polity we had. Like, most of the time we assume that there was no polity, but there was some sort of central authority in Harappan period. But since the Aryan period, since the Rigvedic period, they started a political organization. Okay, so from the Rigveda time, slowly the political associations have started forming, and there is some sort of hierarchy being started in the polity of the system basically. Okay, the concept of polity developed in the Rigvedic time. Various units of habitation and division such as Jana, Vis, Gana, Grama, and Kula are referred in the Rigveda. Okay, the Vedas speak about the Aryans and their enemies and the battles they fought with them. The battles were fought more for cattle and material wealth, and the war booty acquired was shared. Okay, they not only fought with the non-Aryans but also fought among themselves also. Okay, they invoked the support of the gods in their battles, some sort of mythology. Okay, they invoked the support of gods. Like, there were a couple of gods, like they would call the Agni god, they would call the Indra god. Okay, so that's some sort of mythology which has been written in Rig Veda. They strongly believed that the prayers, sacrifices, and rituals could offer support in their mundane life. So basically, what they say is prayers, sacrifices, these started from Rig Veda period itself. Okay, so these were given very high importance. These were given very high importance. Okay, the rituals, the sacrifices, and these all stuff were given very high importance. Automatically, it created importance to the priest people also. Okay, the god Indra is called Purandara, okay, which means destroyer of settlements, which are perhaps fenced or planned townships. So there is a battle called the Battle of Ten Kings. Okay, the Bharatas and Tristu were ruling Aryan clans who were supported by the Vashishta, the priest. Okay, the region of India was named as Bharatavarsha, which we even call now. Basically, the Bharatavarsha came from this Bharata clan. Okay, the Bharata clan was opposed by 10 chiefs, and 5 out of them were Aryans. Okay, so it does mean that 5 Aryans and 5 non-Aryans. Okay, so there was kind of mutual fighting kind of a thing. Okay, this battle was known as the Battle of Ten Kings. The battle took place on the banks of river Parushni, which is identified with the river Ravi. In this battle, Sudas won and he became important, leading to the dominance of Bharata clan. Okay, the Purus were one of the defeated clans. Okay, the Purus and the Bharatas formed an alliance. Since they got defeated, Purus and Bharatas got alliance and they formed the Kuru clan. Okay, later the Kuru allied with Panchalas and established their control over the Upper Ganga valley. So you heard about Kuru Panchala, which we discussed in the first class, in the previous class of this chapter. Okay, so what kind of social divisions they had? See, till we saw in Harappan, there were like two set of people, like one in the citadel and one in the common place. Okay, that was the major differentiation there. But here in the Rigvedic period, there started already there is a differentiation in the Aryan and non-Aryan people, right? Aryan and non-Aryan. Okay, in that also, in the Aryan people also, okay, they had their own categorization. Okay, so the Vedic people distinguished themselves from the non-Aryan people. Obviously, we discussed. Varna was the term. Varna, which we even use now. What we discussed in the last class, Varna, a lot of the cultural aspects started from the Rigvedic period itself. The cultural aspects which we are facing now, which we are experiencing now, are extracted from the Rigvedic period. We don't know whether it is completely pure or not. Obviously, it is not pure. People have changed the the meanings and as per their necessities. Okay, they have changed the culture as per the necessities. Okay, it is not the pure culture which we got it from the Rigvedic period. Okay, let's continue. Varna was the term used by the Aryans to refer to color and category. Okay, the Rigveda refers to Arya Varna and the Dasa Varna. So there are just two basically, the Varnas, the Arya Varna and the Dasa Varna. Okay, the Dasas and Dasyus were conquered and treated as slaves. So Dasas and Dasyus, who were actually the actual people who were native to Indian subcontinent, were considered as slaves. Okay, they came to be considered Shudras in the later period. Okay, the Shudras, which we know now, okay, the lower caste people, are actually the Dasas and Dasyus, who slowly they got treated as slaves and slowly they got converted as Sudras basically. Social classes were classified as warriors, priests, and common people. Okay, Shudras as a category of people appeared at the end of Rig Vedic period. What they say is, in the starting, in the early Vedic period, there was no concept of Shudras basically. Okay, there was a concept of Dasas and Dasyus and the Aryan people, but there was no concept of Shudras. Okay, so Shudras slowly got inculcated in the later Vedic period. Okay, slavery was common and slaves were given as gifts to the priests, but there is no reference to wage labor. Okay, there was no reference to the wage labor. Okay, and horse-drawn chariots were used, bronze objects were used, and they were possessed by only a few people. It gives us information that the wealth was with a limited people itself. Okay, Vedic society was largely egalitarian. So basically what they are saying is the society was more or less equal. Okay, there was some sort of equality. Okay, there was some sort of equality in the initial stage, and social distinctions emerged later. So what they are saying is, the static Rigvedic period, the actual Rigvedic period, everybody was considered as equal. And slowly, as the time passed by, okay, there started the social distinctions. According to the Purusha Sukta of Rigveda, the various varnas emerged, thus Brahmanas from the mouth, Kshatriyas from the arms, Vaishyas from the thighs, and Shudra from the feet of the Purusha when he was sacrificed. Okay, this came later. Okay, these social divisions are considered to have arisen towards the end of the early Vedic period. Okay, in the starting, in the early Vedic period, in the starting of the early Vedic period, there were no distinctions. Slowly, there formed distinctions of Aryan and non-Aryan. Then slowly, again, there is a distinction in the varnas of Brahmanas, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra in the last stage of early Vedic period. Okay, professional groups, warriors, priests, cattle keepers, farmers, barbers are also mentioned. Panis were traders basically. Okay, Pani. Okay, you can see a couple of names ending with Pani basically. For example, Chakrapani. These kind of names were basically given to the traders. Okay, Panis are also seen as enemies in the couple of verses. Okay, next comes the tribe and the family. Okay, since Rigvedic society was basically kind of tribal formation. Okay, kinship was the basis of social structure of Rigvedic society. People were identified with specific clans, and clans formed the tribe or jana. Okay, the term jana occurs in Rigveda 21 times, but Janapada does not occur even once. You need to see Janapada was never mentioned in Rigveda, but Jana was mentioned. Janapada concept comes in the later stage, at a very later stage, almost after Rigveda, almost 1000 to 1500 years. Okay, the term Vis, which refers to common people, occurs 170 times, and they lived in gramas. See, you need to remember these terminologies. These are very important in the aspect of UPSC prelims. A lot of questions have been asked in the same way and will be also asked in the same way in the future also. Okay, so you need to remember what is Jana, what is Vis, what is Grama. These kind of things you need to remember. The family, Griha, family is Griha, was the main social unit within the tribe. Okay, it was headed by a Grihapati. Okay, and his wife was known as Sapatni. Okay, and the family at that point of time was perhaps a joint family. Okay, so what about the woman? Okay, woman had a respectable position, but it is not possible to generalize about this. Society was essentially patriarchal. Okay, patriarchal, clear. Okay, so it was a male dominant society. From that time onwards only, we started having a patriarchal society. Previously, in the Harappan culture, what we saw was there was some sort of equality, and women were considered much more sacred. They were given much more importance. Specifically, we saw that Mother Goddess uh, and bronze image, those kind of thing give us some sort of information that women were considered very sacred or very important. But coming in this Rigvedic period, the women were given some sort of importance. They were given a respectable position, but the society was patriarchal. Okay, with a reference to male children. Male children were considered very important, since at that point of time there was a lot of battles happening. So male children used to go and fight, so they used to have very this thing, very preference to these male children. Okay, and also cattle. Most of the battles which happened at that time, in that time of Rigvedic period, happened for the sake of cattle itself. Okay, the birth of a son was preferred, perhaps because of the martial nature. Okay, what we just had a discussion, the battle thing of the society, which required male members for their clashes to establish dominance over the territories. Having 10 sons was considered as one of a blessing. Okay, women attended assemblies and offered sacrifices also. Marriage was common, but primitive practices were also continued. See, in the Rigvedic period also, in the early Vedic period also, women were given pretty good position. Like they used to attend the assemblies, they had, they offered sacrifices. But as the time passed by, the position of the woman deteriorated. In the later Vedic periods, the woman's position was pretty deteriorated, and as the time passed by, the woman's position got very deteriorated. Basically, okay, you will understand in the coming classes how it happened and what has actually happened. Okay, polyandry seems to have existed, and widow remarriage was also known. So what they are saying is, like, polyandry is basically more than one husband, basically. Okay, and widow remarriage was also known. So what does that show is, basically there is some sort of equality between men and women. Okay, widow remarriage, and when wife dies, the husband gets married, that kind of a culture. Now around just 3 to 400 years ago, now in present, widow remarriage was considered as a very evil practice. Okay, so you need to understand, Rigvedic society at that point of time was very liberal at that point of time. Okay, very broad-mindedness was there. Okay, people married at the age of 16 to 17 according to scholars, and there is a little knowledge about the child marriages, basically. Okay, so there was no sort of child marriages happening. So there used to be marriages around 16 to 17 years. So major part of the agriculture economy was agriculture. Okay, archaeological evidence points to the development of agriculture among the Rigvedic people. The plowshare is mentioned in the Rigvedas. The plowshare has been mentioned. Okay, the field was known as kshetra. Term krishi referred to plowing. Okay, kshetra is basically field, and krishi is referred to plowing. The term langla and sura referred to the plow. Okay, and the term sita meant the furrow created by the plowing. Okay, these terminologies you have to remember. Okay, you can write it on a piece of paper and keep it with your book, or else write it in a notebook. At least the terminologies which we are discussing, these are very important. Okay, water for irrigation was probably drawn from wells, okay, by cattle driven water lifts using the pulleys. They had knowledge of different seasons, sowing, harvesting and thrashing. See, in the starting, the nomadic people, they used to just live. Okay, there was just a matter of survival. As the time passed by, these people started understanding the seasons. As the time passed by, sort of information was being passed through generations and generations, and by this time they started understanding when there is monsoon, when there is winter, basically. Okay, a lot of information was there, and they possessed this knowledge and used them for the growth of their crops and agriculture. They cultivated barley, which was called as yavam, and wheat, which was called as goduma. Okay, next is pastoralism. Pastoralism is basically the cattle. Okay, Cattle were considered as wealth. Okay, the term for war in Rigveda was Gavishti, which means search for cows, which is contemporary term. Goshti for factions. Okay, what does this mean for us? War was called as Gavishti, which means search for cows. So it does mean like lot of battles, lot of wars were happening for the sake of cows. Okay, the donation to the priests were mainly cows and women, slaves, but not land. Okay, not land, which reveals the importance of pastoralism. Okay, so they gave gifts as cows and women, but not land. There was no private property in land at that point of time. Okay, there was abundant land, the population was very less at that time, so obviously the land was not very important for the people. Okay, next is craft production. So mentions artisans such as carpenters, chariot makers, weavers, and leather workers. Copper metallurgy was one of the important developments of this period. The term ayas in the Rig Veda refers to copper and bronze. Okay, ayas. Okay, karmara, smith, is mentioned in the Rig Veda. Okay, likewise there are references to siri or yarn, okay, indicating spinning, which was done by women, and to carpenters takshan. Okay, weaving of clothes of wool is also referred to, and obviously it was necessary in the cold weather. Some of the crafts were full-time crafts involving specialists. Okay, so there were specialist craftsmen like carpenters, and these were very specialist, and they were very keen about it. Okay, next comes the trade, exchange, and redistribution. What kind of trade they had? Trading activities were limited through traders were present during the early Vedic period. Okay, panis, we just discussed, were traders. Okay, and they were perhaps caravan traders. The word pan means barter. Okay, means barter, which was a mode of exchange. Nishka was gold or silver ornament used in the barter. A priest received around 100 horses and 100 nishkas as fee for his sacrifices. Okay, so 100 horses and 100 nishkas, the gold or silver ornament. The danas and dakshinas offered to people were means of redistributing resources. The dakshina was both a fee for a specific service and also means of distributing wealth. So what kind of transport they used? We discussed they used to have these kind of horse driven chariots. Okay, they even had bullock carts, horses, and horse drawn chariots. Okay, used for transport. There are references to the sea, samudra, and boats now. Okay, samudra and boats now. Boats driven by 100 oars are mentioned. Oars is basically there is a boat, right? We use that stick kind of a thing to row the boat. 2 sticks will be used, no, that are called as oars basically. So 100 oars, it has been mentioned. You see, this is just a representative image. These are oars basically. The sticks kind of thing which we use for rowing is basically called as oars. Okay, this thing is also. Okay, what kind of polity they had, what kind of government system, what kind of system they had. The polity of the Rigvedic period was that of a tribal society. Okay, the chief of the tribe was mainly political head, and he was called as the Rajan. Okay, the kings lived in multi-pillared palaces. Okay, the palaces started at that point of time. They offered gifts of cattle, chariots, and horse ornaments, and gold to the priests. Okay, so whatever, the priest got very much importance at this point of time, since they believed in lot of sacrifices and rituals basically. The Rajan was a hereditary chief. He was perhaps elected by the assembly called the Samiti. Okay, the main duty of the king was to protect the tribe. He protected wealth, fought wars, and offered prayers on behalf of gods. The king had authority over the territory and the people. Vedic society was militaristic. Obviously, we discussed, like, there are lot of battles happening all the time. Okay, bows, daggers, axes, and lances were the main weapons of war. Tributes and booty collected from the war were redistributed by the king. References to king or dasas or slaves. Okay, the king Trasadasyu, the chief of the Purus, gave away 50 women as a gift. Okay, the chief was known as Gopa or Gopati. Okay, the assemblies called Sabha, Samiti, Vidata, and Gana are mentioned in Rig Veda. So, see, Sabha, Samiti, Vidata, Gana. So, the UPSC will ask a question, which is, related to kind of assembly, okay, or which has been mentioned in the ancient history. Okay, Sabha was the assembly of elders or the elites. Okay, Samiti was an assembly of people, normal people. Vidhata was the assembly of tribe. Okay, Sabha was assembly of elders and elites. Samiti, assembly of people. Vidata, assembly of tribe. Okay, they performed military and religious functions. Women attended the Sabha and Vidatas. The king sought the support of Samiti and Sabha for his activities. There are debates about the exact nature of these assemblies and functions, what actually the purpose was. Okay, the Purohita, the priest, offered advice to the king. Okay, the king used to follow the Purohita's advice, and whatever he says regarding the rituals or the sacrifices, he used to follow. Vedic priest advises the king, inspired and praised their deeds. In turn, they received rewards for their services. As we just discussed, he used to get 100 horses and that kind of thing. Senani was the chief of army. Okay, there is no evidence of tax collecting officers. Okay, so it is considered, there is no sort of taxation, but there was a voluntary contribution called the bali to the king. Some scholars say that bali was as imposed tax and was not voluntary. Okay, since we can assume, so we just need to follow. There is no reference to administration of justice. So there were no judges, or we don't know there were judges or not, or there was some sort of system of justice. The officers who controlled the territory was called as Prajapati. Okay, he helped the Kulapas, or the head of fighting groups called the Gramini. Gramini was the head of the village. Okay, religion and rituals played an important role, we just discussed. In the Rig Veda, the natural forces, sun, moon, rivers, mountains, rains, were defined as divinities. Okay, the importance of the nature was very much considered at that point of time. Okay, they considered sun, moon, rivers, mountains as their gods at that point of time. Okay, Indra was one of the most important god, and he was called as Purandara. Okay, Agni was seen as intermediary between god and people. Surya was god who removed the darkness. Okay, Ushas was the goddess of dawn. Aditi, Prithvi, Sinivali, these all were other important goddesses. Next comes the Varuna, the god of water. Okay, he was next in importance. This god was upholder of natural order. Okay, Soma was the god of plants, which we just discussed in the starting. Okay, was the god of plants, and the drink was named after him. They used to make a Soma drink. Okay, they used to have it in special rituals and special functions, and it was kind of intoxicating. Okay, what we have, it was something which used to give some sort of dizziness, and which we have this alcohols and all that time that Soma was there. Okay, preparation of intoxicating drink, we explained in many hymns. Maruts was the god of strength. There are a few references to Rudra or Shiva. Okay, characteristics of society. In the early Vedic period, lineage and tribes constituted the society, just we discussed, okay, and the king had limited power, okay. The various tribal groups of Aryans and non-Aryans fought to control the territories. Social divisions did not take deep root, just the social divisions started growing from that time, although the concept of Varna and Aryan identities existed. Pastoralism was predominant and cattle-centered clashes were common. Although agriculture did play an important role. Cattle was very important, agriculture was also important, but cattle was considered very much important. The archaeological sites suggest different types of craft production, including metal, carpentry, pottery, and clothes. So that's all for today. Thanks for listening the class, and in the next class we will see about the later Vedic period and what has happened at that point of time. Okay, so please like the video, please, which will encourage us to put a lot of more free content to you, which will encourage to make us happy, which will make us very happy. Okay, and please comment like how did you like the video, did you like it, or anything you need in these videos, any changes you need. And please share the video, please subscribe to the channel, please share it to your friends. And if you want any sort of information regarding any of the courses or the test series, please reach us on the WhatsApp number provided. Thank you and have a great day.